It was a frigid day in New York City, the kind of winter morning where the wind cut through even the thickest coats. Donald Trump, back in the early 1970s, wasn't yet the millionaire mogul the world would come to know. He was a young man working in his father's real estate company, hustling to make a name for himself. Every morning, he'd walk the bustling streets of Manhattan, eyes peeled for inspiration, new properties, new deals, new opportunities. Dressed in a sharp black overcoat, his golden hair catching the light, and with that unmistakable confident stride, he stood out even then, though most passersby had no clue who he was. One day, as Trump strolled down Fifth Avenue, a ragged figure stepped into his path. The man was a beggar, his clothes torn, his beard unkempt, his hands reddened from the cold. He'd set a piece of cardboard on the sidewalk with the words, "Please help," scrawled in shaky handwriting. Looking up at Trump, the beggar's voice trembled as he spoke. "Sir, got $1 to spare?" Trump paused. Normally, he'd brush past such encounters. Time was money, after all. But something about this man made him stop. There was a flicker in the beggar's eye, sadness mixed with a faint glimmer of hope. Trump patted his pockets, only to realize he didn't have any cash on him. He flashed a grin and said, "Sorry, buddy. Looks like you caught me at a bad time, no cash. But I'll tell you what, I'm gonna help you out today." The beggar blinked, confused. He wasn't used to responses like that. People either tossed him a few coins or ignored him entirely. But Trump was different. He stepped closer, clapped a hand on the man's shoulder, and asked, "What's your name?" "John." "John Smith," the beggar replied hesitantly. "All right, John. I'm Donald. You deserve better than sitting out here in the cold. I'm gonna find you a job." John didn't believe it. He'd been on the streets for years, and no one had ever offered him anything like that. But there was a certainty in Trump's voice that sparked a tiny ember of hope. Trump gestured toward a small diner nearby and said, "Come on, let's get out of this wind." They walked in together, the bell above the door jingling as they entered. Trump ordered John a hot chocolate and a sandwich, then sat across from him in a worn leather booth. As the steam rose from the mug, they started talking. John opened up about his life. He hadn't always been a beggar. Once he'd had a family, a home, a steady job as a mechanic. But after coming back from Vietnam, everything fell apart. The war had left scars, some visible, some not, and he couldn't hold down a job. His wife left him, taking their kid, and eventually the streets became his home. Trump listened intently. He wasn't usually one to linger on personal stories, but John's honesty struck a chord. "John," Trump said, leaning forward, "I'm giving you a shot. My dad's company has a construction site that could use an extra hand. It's simple work, but it'll get you back on your feet." John's jaw dropped. He dreamed of a chance like this for years. Trump handed him a business card and said, "Meet me at this address tomorrow morning. I'll be there." The next day, John showed up at the site, nerves buzzing. True to his word, Trump was waiting. He introduced John to the crew and got him started. The first few days were rough. John's hands shook from disuse, and his body ached from years of neglect. But the team took him under their wing, and Trump checked in now and then to make sure he was settling in. Slowly, John found his rhythm. Months passed. John wasn't sleeping on the streets anymore. He'd saved enough to rent a tiny apartment, a cramped studio with peeling paint, but it was his. Every day, he showed up to work, and bit by bit, he rebuilt his confidence. Trump didn't forget about him either. He'd swing by the site occasionally, tossing John a nod or a quick, "How's it going?" One day, John pulled him aside and said, "Donald, you changed my life. I don't know how to thank you. Trump smirked and replied, John, I didn't hand you a fortune. I gave you a shot. You earned the rest yourself. But the story doesn't end there. Fast forward to the 1980s. Trump was now a household name, a real estate titan with his face plastered across newspapers. He was gearing up for the grand opening of Trump Tower, a gleaming symbol of his success. The event drew a huge crowd. Business tycoons, politicians, celebrities all gathered to celebrate. As Trump worked the room, shaking hands and flashing smiles, his gaze landed on a familiar face in the crowd. It was John Smith, but not the John he remembered. This John wore a tailored suit, carried a leather briefcase, and stood with the poise of a man who'd made something of himself. Trump waved him over, eyebrows raised. John, is that you? What's the story here? John grinned and said, Donald, you gave me a chance back then. I didn't waste it. I worked my way up on that construction crew, learned the trade, and started my own little outfit. Now I'm in the building game, just like you. I came here today to propose a partnership. Trump was floored. He'd never imagined John would climb this far. They shook hands, sealing the deal right there in the middle of the glitzy crowd. In the years that followed, John Smith became a respected name in New York's construction world, a quiet success story born from that cold day on Fifth Avenue. And whenever someone asked him how he'd turned his life around, he'd smile and say, My fortune started with a hot chocolate Donald bought me.